The lights flickered, and the air filled with screams. Somewhere inside Red Ridge Prison, a guard shouted for help, then silence. Moments later, alarms exploded through the block, red lights flashing over blood-stained concrete. In the center of it all stood Marcus Stone Red, handcuffed, bruised, surrounded by chaos. But his face was calm, too calm. He looked up at the warden, his voice steady. "You think you run this place, but you don't even know what's under it." Before the warden could answer, the power cut out again. Darkness swallowed the prison. And that was the moment everything changed. 3 days earlier, Marcus Red arrived at Red Ridge, America's toughest prison. A place built deep in the mountains, surrounded by fences stacked with razor wire. The inmates here weren't petty thieves. They were lifers, killers, gang leaders, and men who had nothing left to lose. From the moment Marcus stepped off the bus, the air felt wrong. The guards didn't talk much. The prisoners didn't look up. It was like everyone was afraid of something no one could name. They called Red Ridge the pit. Because once you fell in, there was no way out. Marcus wasn't a gang member or a killer. He was a construction foreman, convicted of armed robbery after being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He thought this place would just be another prison. But he was wrong. That night, as he lay in his cell, he heard strange noises under the floor. Not rats. Not pipes. Something heavier. It sounded like chains being dragged, slow, metallic, and steady. He asked the inmate in the next cell, "You hear that?" The man whispered back, "Don't talk about it. Just sleep. If you listen too long, they come for you." Marcus laughed softly, thinking it was a joke. But when morning came, the cell next to his was empty. No one said a word about it. And when he asked a guard, the man's eyes went cold. "Cell 209 doesn't exist," he said. That's when Marcus realized something was very wrong inside Red Ridge Prison. Marcus couldn't shake it off. The sound of those chains. The missing inmate. And the way the guard's voice went cold when he mentioned Cell 209. Days passed, but Red Ridge felt alive, like the walls themselves were watching. At night, the air vents whispered. Sometimes the lights flickered for no reason, and the guards would shut down entire sections of the prison without explaining why. During yard time, Marcus started asking quiet questions. Most inmates told him to keep his mouth shut. But one, an older man with gray hair and faded tattoos, finally spoke. "They built this place on top of an old mine," the man said. "Back in the 1940s. Workers died down there. Lots of them. They never sealed it off." Marcus frowned. "You mean there's something under us?" The man nodded. Something that was never supposed to be found. Before Marcus could ask more, 2 guards approached. "Red, on your feet," one ordered. "Warden wants to see you." The warden's office was high above the blocks, quiet, clean, and too perfect for a place like Red Ridge. Behind the desk sat Warden Hale, tall and calm, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He motioned for Marcus to sit. "Mr. Red," Hale said softly, "you seem curious." Marcus stayed silent. The warden leaned forward. "Curiosity doesn't end well here. You keep your head down, do your time, and you might walk out one day. Otherwise," he tapped the desk with his finger, "people disappear. Understand?" Marcus nodded, but inside, he was boiling. Something about Hale's tone told him the warden wasn't warning him. He was threatening him. That night, Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The sound came again, those dragging chains, echoing deep below the floor. Only this time, they were louder, closer. And then, 3 sharp knocks from under his bed. Marcus froze. Every light in the cell block went out. Darkness swallowed everything. And from somewhere beneath him, a voice whispered, "Don't dig, Marcus. Don't dig." Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his bunk, heart pounding, waiting for another sound. But nothing came, just silence so heavy it pressed against his chest. When morning arrived, the guards acted normal, but something was off. Every inmate in Block D looked restless, whispering under their breath. Word had spread that another prisoner went missing overnight. No name, no reason, just gone. During breakfast, Marcus looked around the cafeteria. Every table was full, but there was one empty spot at the far corner. That's where the old man with gray hair used to sit. A guard passed by, and Marcus asked, "Where's the old guy from yesterday?" The guard didn't look at him. "Eat your food," he said. Marcus pressed. "You moved him?" "Transferred." The guard slammed his baton on the table. "I said eat." Marcus lowered his head, but kept thinking. 2 men gone. both right after talking about the basement. The connection was clear, but what was down there? Later that day, while cleaning duty took him near the maintenance tunnels, Marcus noticed something strange. A heavy steel door behind the laundry room, sealed with a chain and lock. On the door, painted in fading red, were two words: authorized personnel only. He waited until no one was around and pressed his ear to it. At first, nothing. Then, faintly, he heard movement. Metal scraping. A muffled cry. Then silence. His gut twisted. Someone was alive down there. That night, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about it. He watched the guards make their rounds, counting every step, every turn. At 2 a.m., he whispered to himself, "If they won't tell me what's under this place, I'll find out myself." The next day, during work duty, he slipped a small screwdriver into his pocket, one he found near the tool cart. He knew what he had to do. The next lockdown night, he'd make his move. But before he could stand up, a shadow appeared outside his cell. It wasn't a guard. It was a man he'd never seen before, dressed in an old, torn uniform, face pale as paper. The man leaned close to the bars and whispered, "You're digging too deep, Red. Don't end up like the rest of us." Then he vanished down the corridor, leaving behind only the sound of slow, dragging chains. Marcus couldn't stop hearing the man's voice in his head. Don't end up like the rest of us. But who was he? And how did he know Marcus's name? By morning, the mysterious man was gone. No one in the cell block had seen him. When Marcus described his old uniform to one of the inmates, the man went pale. "There haven't been uniforms like that in 20 years, he whispered. "Those were the first guards, the ones who built this place." That night, Marcus waited. He watched the guards' routines again, every step, every light flicker, every key turn. At exactly 1:45 a.m., the power dimmed for its usual maintenance cycle. He knew he had 5 minutes before the backup generator kicked in. He grabbed the screwdriver from under his mattress, slipped it into his sleeve, and stepped into the corridor. The cameras blinked once, then went dark. Perfect timing. Moving fast, he headed down to the laundry block. The halls were silent, except for the hum of pipes behind the walls. He reached the steel door. The red letters looked even darker now. Authorized personnel only. Marcus knelt and began picking at the lock. Sweat ran down his face as he twisted the screwdriver, forcing the chain loose. With a final click, the lock fell open. He took a deep breath and pulled the door. It groaned like something alive. A rush of cold air escaped, smelling of rust and earth. A narrow staircase spiraled downward into pitch-black darkness. He stepped inside, each creak echoing like thunder. The deeper he went, the colder it got. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the walls were rough stone, not concrete. After a few steps, he saw something scratched into the wall. No light. No sound. No return. Marcus stopped. Every instinct told him to turn back, but then, he heard it again. Chains dragging. A faint whisper calling his name. "Marcus, down here." He gripped the railing and kept going. When he reached the bottom, his foot hit something metal. He pointed his flashlight and froze. Rows of old prison cells stretched across the underground chamber. Inside them were shackles, rusted tools, and markings that looked like tally marks scratched into stone. But what made him step back wasn't the cells. It was the figure standing at the end of the hall. Still, silent, watching him. Then the lights above flickered once and went out. The lights blinked out, and the silence hit hard. Marcus froze, his breath sharp in his chest. All he could hear was the steady drip of water and the slow drag of chains somewhere in the dark. He turned the flashlight back on, but the beam barely worked, flickering weakly. He aimed it down the hallway. The figure was gone. Marcus swallowed hard, his pulse pounding. He stepped forward slowly, scanning the old cells one by one. Empty, dusty, but in each one, he saw deep claw marks on the walls, as if someone had tried to escape. Then, something moved behind him. A faint whisper brushed against his ear. "Leave this place." He spun around, flashlight shaking. Nothing. The sound of footsteps started echoing behind the walls, like someone pacing inside the stone itself. Marcus backed up, his hands trembling. He pointed the light toward a corner and noticed a small door, half broken, with chains hanging loose. He stepped closer, realizing the air around it was colder, heavier. He pulled the door open. A single light bulb swung from the ceiling, flickering just enough to reveal what was inside. There was a table, covered in old papers, broken tools, and a stack of photos. He picked one up and froze. It was a picture of inmates, lined up in the same underground tunnel he was standing in. Their faces were bruised, terrified, and standing behind them was Warden Hale. But the photo was dated 1998. The same warden, the same face. He hadn't aged a single day. Marcus felt his stomach twist. He looked around, flipping through more photos, each showing Hale with different prisoners, all from different years. 1998, 2005, 2012, always the same face, always the same place. The flashlight flickered again. Behind him, the chains rattled. He turned, but before he could react, something cold brushed his neck like a hand made of ice. The flashlight fell to the floor. In the half-light, he saw it. A figure standing inches away, face pale, eyes hollow. Marcus stumbled back, heart racing, and whispered, "What are you?" The figure leaned closer, voice cracked and broken. "One of them, before they buried us here." The ground shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Then a loud crash echoed from above, the sound of cell doors slamming shut. Someone, or something, knew he was down there. Marcus grabbed the flashlight, bolted toward the stairs, and ran. But when he reached the top, the steel door was closed again, locked tight from the outside. He pounded on it, shouting, "Let me out!" Somebody opened the door. No one answered. The only sound was the faint rattle of chains, moving closer. Marcus slammed his fists against the steel door until his hands ached. No answer. No footsteps. Nothing. Just the cold hum of air rising from the tunnel below. He turned around, chest heaving. The flickering flashlight barely lit the hall, but he could see the dust moving, like something was breathing down there. The chains clanked again, closer this time. Not random. Not echoing. They were circling him. Marcus forced himself to stay calm. He scanned the walls for another way out, his flashlight sweeping across old pipes and cracks in the stone. That's when he spotted it. An air duct, half-rusted and hanging loose. It was small, but maybe just big enough to crawl through. He ran toward it, dropped to his knees, and began pulling at the metal cover. It creaked loudly, every sound echoing like thunder in the silence. He yanked harder until it snapped off. Just as he was about to crawl in, he froze. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Getting closer. The air grew colder with every step. He pointed the light toward the far end of the hall and saw movement, shadows bending unnaturally along the walls. Then, a faint voice rose from the darkness. "You shouldn't have come here, Marcus." It was the warden's voice. But it wasn't coming from above, it was echoing from below. Marcus' heart stopped. He crawled into the duct and began moving fast, dragging himself through tight metal, the sound of his own breath loud in his ears. Behind him, something crawled too. A scraping noise. Slow, steady, never far. He kept going until the duct split into two paths. Left or right. He couldn't tell which led up. He took the right one. After a few meters, light leaked through a grate ahead. He pressed against it, peering through the slits, and froze. He wasn't above ground. He was looking into another chamber. Rows of old cells lined the room, each one filled with figures standing perfectly still. Too still. He stared harder, realizing they weren't alive. Bodies, mummified by time, wrapped in old inmate uniforms. Each had a metal tag around their neck. One of them read, 209 J. Miller, the same number as the cell that didn't exist. Marcus stumbled back in shock, his elbow hitting the side of the vent. The sound echoed through the chamber, and one of the bodies turned its head toward him. He froze in disbelief. The thing's eyes snapped open. Then, every body in the chamber turned, all at once, facing the vent. Their chains started to rattle in unison, the sound rising like thunder. Marcus kicked the grate open, dropped down, and ran through the chamber. He didn't care where he was going anymore. He just needed out. Behind him, the chains followed. Not dragging. Running. Marcus ran, his boots pounding against the wet concrete floor. Every echo behind him matched his steps, only heavier, like the walls themselves were moving. The air was thick and cold, each breath cutting through his throat. He turned a corner, flashlight shaking in his hand. The beam caught flashes of faces, pale, frozen, eyes staring blankly from behind rusted bars. The corpses didn't move this time, but their chains did, swaying, clinking softly as if warning him he didn't belong here. Marcus kept running. At the end of the tunnel, he saw a metal door, half open, light spilling through a crack. He rushed toward it, pushed it wide, and froze. The room was huge. Circular. It looked nothing like a part of the prison. Rows of strange machines hummed quietly, glowing faintly blue. Wires and monitors lined the walls, displaying camera feeds from every block of Red Ridge. And in the center of the room stood Warden Hale. Calm. Waiting. "Welcome, Mr. Red," Hale said, his voice echoing through the underground. Marcus gripped his flashlight like a weapon. "What is this place?" Hale smiled faintly. "The real Red Ridge. The one no one writes reports about." Marcus looked around again, saw small glass chambers along the wall, each one holding an inmate inside, frozen in silence. Their bodies twitched faintly, eyes closed, wires connected to their heads. He stepped closer, realizing what he was looking at. "These are prisoners, but they're not dead." Hale's tone stayed calm. "They're alive. Barely. You see, Red Ridge was never just a prison. It's a test site. A place to study human obedience when fear replaces freedom." Marcus stared at him in shock. "You're experimenting on people?" Hale tilted his head. "You call it that. I call it order." The floor trembled under them, and one of the glass chambers cracked. The inmate inside twitched violently, smashing his head against the glass. An alarm went off, red lights flashing across the room. Hale turned toward a control panel, pressing buttons fast. Marcus saw his chance. He grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and charged forward, swinging at the warden's arm. The pipe connected hard. Hale dropped to one knee, shouting in pain. But when Marcus looked down, his blood ran cold. Hale's arm wasn't bleeding, it was made of metal. The warden raised his head slowly, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You shouldn't have done that, Marcus." The machines around them started to spark, their lights flickering violently. Behind the glass, the frozen inmates began to move, twitching, jerking, slamming against their chambers as if waking from a nightmare. Marcus backed away, staring in disbelief. "What are you?" Hale stood tall, his voice cold and flat. "The one who keeps the walls alive." The room shook again. Every screen went black, except one. It showed the live feed of Block D, Marcus's old cell. And standing inside, it was the same pale man who had warned him days ago. He looked straight into the camera and whispered something that made Marcus's blood freeze. "It's not Hale who runs this prison, it's what's beneath it." The feed cut to static. The screen went dark. The alarm screamed. The whole room began to shake, dust falling from the ceiling as red lights flashed wildly. Marcus looked around in panic. The glass chambers were cracking one by one. The inmates inside were awake now, pounding on the glass with bleeding hands, their faces twisted in pain and rage. Warden Hale stood calmly in the center, as if he had seen this happen before. "You've ruined years of control," he said coldly. "You opened the gate." Marcus grabbed a broken metal bar from the floor. "Then maybe it's time you stopped playing God." He swung at Hale again. Sparks flew as metal hit metal, the impact sending both of them to the ground. Hale's mechanical hand sparked violently, his voice glitching for a moment before returning to normal. "You can't stop what's below," he said, his tone steady even through the chaos. "You're only waking it up." Marcus turned toward the exit and ran. Behind him, the chambers exploded, glass and smoke filling the room. The screams of inmates, human, broken, echoing through steel, mixed with the grinding roar of the machines as they began to melt down. He stumbled into the hallway, coughing from the smoke. Flames licked the walls, alarms blaring from every direction. He could barely see through the haze, but he knew he had to get up to the main prison before the tunnels collapsed. He reached the old stairway and started climbing fast. Every step vibrated beneath him, chunks of concrete falling from above. Halfway up, the sound returned, the dragging chains, louder than ever, chasing him up the stairs. He turned and saw shapes moving in the smoke, dozens of them. Twisted figures of what used to be inmates, their bodies scarred, their faces hidden under shadows. They were climbing the walls, their chains wrapped around their limbs like armor. Marcus pushed himself harder, gasping for air. At the top of the stairs, he slammed into the steel door, the same one that had trapped him before. This time, it wasn't locked. He threw it open and tumbled into the laundry block above. The moment he did, the ground shook so hard he could barely stay on his feet. The floor split open, revealing a massive hole leading straight into the tunnels below. From the darkness came a low, deep sound, like breathing. Marcus backed away, eyes wide. Something huge was down there. Something alive. Then, from the shadows below, a giant chain shot upward, wrapping around a washing machine and dragging it into the hole like it weighed nothing. Marcus stumbled back and ran. He didn't look behind him. He just ran. He burst through the hallway, into Block D, his old cell block, only to stop dead in his tracks. Every cell door was open. Every inmate was gone. The prison was silent. Too silent. Marcus looked up at the security camera in the corner. The red light on it blinked once, then turned blue. And from the intercom, Warden Hale's voice echoed softly, distorted but calm. "You can run, Marcus, but you're still inside." The lights flickered overhead, turning the hallway into a stuttering nightmare of red and white flashes. Marcus stood frozen, breathing hard, staring at the flickering camera. Hale's voice was gone now, but the echo of it still pulsed in his head. He turned and moved slowly down the hallway. The air felt heavy, humid, like the prison itself was alive and exhaling through its vents. Every few steps, he heard groans in the pipes, like deep, slow heartbeats hidden in the walls. When he passed cell 14, the one he used to clean, the steel bars began to shake on their own. He stopped and stepped back. The door creaked open. Inside, the bed was neatly made, but someone, or something, had written across the wall in thick black ink, "You never left." Marcus staggered backward, whispering, "No, no, I got out. I'm out." But the prison didn't seem to agree. A loud crash came from the mess hall ahead. He ran toward it, pushing the doors open with his shoulder, and froze again. Every table, every chair, every tray was stacked in a perfect spiral in the center of the room, reaching nearly to the ceiling. At the top of the spiral, a single inmate uniform hung from a chain. It was his. Marcus's knees almost buckled. "This isn't real," he muttered. But the sound of footsteps behind him proved it was. He spun around, gripping the broken metal bar he still carried. A figure stepped out from the shadows. A man in guard uniform, face hidden behind a cracked mask. The badge said H. Warden. Marcus shouted, "Stay back." The guard tilted his head slightly, the way a machine studies a human. Then it spoke, in Hale's voice. "Red Ridge doesn't need guards anymore. It guards itself." Before Marcus could move, the thing lunged forward, moving too fast for something half-human. He ducked under its arm, slammed the metal bar against its side, and sparks burst from where its skin tore away, revealing wires underneath. It wasn't Hale. It wasn't even human. Marcus sprinted toward the exit door, pounding the emergency release. It opened halfway before jamming, and he squeezed through, scraping his shoulders on the metal frame. On the other side, the corridor stretched ahead, dark, endless. He could see the faint blue light at the far end, the old elevator shaft that led to the surface. He ran toward it, slipping on blood smeared across the floor. The sirens had stopped now. Only the sound of his own heartbeat filled the silence. Halfway down the hall, he stopped. The walls were moving. The concrete was breathing, expanding and shrinking, as if the whole prison was inhaling around him. The pipes above him rattled violently. Something metallic dripped from them, thick, black, and warm. Marcus looked up, his face pale. It wasn't oil. It was blood. He stumbled forward, gasping, his mind breaking between terror and exhaustion. All he wanted now was sunlight, air, something human. He reached the elevator doors, forced them open, and peered down the empty shaft. It stretched far below into darkness, but at the very top, he could see faint daylight. He grabbed the ladder and started to climb. Each rung cut into his hands, but he didn't stop. He kept climbing, higher and higher, away from the breathing walls and whispering shadows. Then, halfway up, a low voice echoed up the shaft, calm, steady, familiar. "Climb all you want, Marcus. You're just rising deeper into me." He looked down and saw the walls of the elevator shifting, forming a face. The face of the prison, Red Ridge itself. And it smiled. Marcus froze on the ladder, his hands trembling as he stared down the shaft. The walls rippled, stretching and twisting, forming lips, eyes, and teeth carved from concrete and wire. The prison was looking straight at him. He blinked hard, but it didn't vanish. The walls pulsed again, breathing in and out, and that deep, crawling voice returned. "You think walls don't remember? You think the screams just fade?" Marcus clung tighter to the ladder, whispering, "You're not real." But the prison laughed. A hollow, echoing sound that made the ladder vibrate beneath his feet. Every rung began to creak and shake, one by one, as if trying to throw him off. He climbed faster, his knuckles split and bleeding. The higher he went, the louder the whispering became. It wasn't one voice anymore, it was hundreds. Men crying, guards shouting, chains rattling. All the pain Red Ridge had swallowed over the years was speaking back. He reached the top, slammed open the elevator hatch, and crawled out onto the upper platform. The daylight above was faint, breaking through a cracked skylight. Dust floated in the air like falling snow. Marcus stumbled toward it, desperate. He could almost feel the sun. He could almost taste freedom. Then he stopped. A figure stood in front of the broken glass. It was the warden, but his face was wrong. Half human, half metal, like the creature Marcus had fought earlier. Wires coiled from his neck like veins, his eyes glowing faint red beneath the brim of his hat. "Welcome home, Red," the warden said softly. "You never left. None of us ever did." Marcus's voice cracked. "You're not real. You died down there. I saw it." The warden stepped closer, each footstep echoing like thunder. "I died, yes. But Red Ridge doesn't let go. It rebuilds. It repurposes. It learns." Marcus looked around. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling, all humming with faint light and vibration. He realized it then. The prison wasn't just a building anymore. It was alive. It had absorbed every piece of pain, violence, and fear that had ever touched its concrete. And now, it was using it. The warden leaned close, his eyes glowing brighter. "You were our final test, Marcus. The only one strong enough to survive the purge." Marcus backed away, his voice shaking. "What purge?" The warden smiled faintly. "The one that starts now." A low rumble filled the air. The ground beneath Marcus's feet began to split open, glowing red from below. Sirens wailed again. Only this time, they sounded less mechanical, more like screams. The skylight shattered above him. Sunlight poured in, but it wasn't warm. It burned against his skin. Marcus ran toward it, leaping over the cracks, gripping the edge of the roof. He hauled himself up and looked out across the horizon. For the first time, he saw Red Ridge from above, and his stomach dropped. The prison wasn't square. It wasn't even shaped like a building. From above, its layout formed something monstrous, a massive human face carved into the earth. And the eyes of that face were still moving. Marcus stumbled backward, whispering, "Oh God!" Behind him, the warden's voice rose again, echoing from inside the building. "Red Ridge is awake now, Marcus. And it remembers everyone." The roof began to crumble beneath his feet. Marcus looked around wildly, searching for a way down, a way out. There was none. The ground split wide open, and the prison swallowed him whole. Marcus fell through total darkness, his screams swallowed by the void. It felt endless, like the air itself had turned into liquid, pulling him down, suffocating him. When he finally hit the ground, it wasn't hard concrete. It was warm, and it was moving. He lay there, gasping, trying to understand. The floor beneath him pulsed like muscle, veins glowing faint red under a thin layer of what looked like concrete skin. Every few seconds, a deep thump echoed through it, slow, steady. A heartbeat. Marcus staggered to his feet, his clothes torn, face streaked with dust and blood. He turned in slow circles, trying to see where he was. The air was thick, hot, metallic. Pipes ran across the walls like arteries. And in the middle of the vast chamber stood something that didn't belong in any prison. A giant column of metal and glass rose from the ground, twisting upward, filled with swirling red light. Inside it, faces. Hundreds of faces, flickering in and out like ghosts trapped behind glass. Some were inmates. Some were guards. And some, he recognized. He stepped closer, pressing his hand against the glass. A whisper escaped from within, his own name forming through the static. "Marcus!" He stumbled backward, eyes wide. "Who are you?" he shouted. The faces inside shifted, merging into one. A familiar one. His mother's. She looked peaceful, her lips barely moving. "Don't fight it, baby. Red Ridge is all of us now." Marcus shook his head violently. No, you died before I even came here. You're not real." But the voice didn't stop. "You were chosen. The others couldn't handle it. But you can. You survived what they couldn't." He stared at the column, realization dawning slow and cold. Red Ridge wasn't feeding on death. It was feeding on memories. Every prisoner, every guard, every scream, every confession. It had absorbed them all and built itself from them. The lights around him dimmed. The heartbeat quickened. From the far end of the chamber, the warden's mechanical voice echoed once more. You wanted to know what was behind these walls, Marcus. A metallic door slid open. Now you do. Marcus turned and saw something rising from the darkness beyond the door. A figure made entirely of wires, cables, and fragments of human faces stitched together by light. Its voice was not one, but thousands, speaking in unison. We are Red Ridge. Marcus took a step back, gripping a broken pipe and shaking hands. What do you want from me? The creature leaned forward, its glowing eyes locking onto his. You were the first to resist. You will be the last to surrender. The ground began to tremble again. The faces inside the glass column screamed in pain. The ceiling cracked open, spilling a shower of red dust. Marcus knew he couldn't fight this thing, but he could still destroy it. He looked up at the power lines feeding into the core. If he could break them, if he could overload whatever was keeping it alive, maybe he could end it all. He grabbed a fallen metal rod, jammed it into the wires, and sparks exploded around him. The chamber roared, lights flickering wildly. Red Ridge screamed, its voice shaking the ground like thunder. Marcus yelled over the noise. You wanted my mind? Then take it all. The core flared blinding white. The faces vanished. The sound stopped, and Marcus fell to his knees, breathing in silence for the first time in what felt like years. But then, from the darkness behind him, a slow clap. He turned. The warden stood there again, untouched, calm. You really think you can kill something that's already inside you? Marcus froze. What do you mean? The warden smiled faintly. Look at your hands. Marcus lifted them. His skin was cracking, metal glinting beneath it. The truth hit him like a hammer. He wasn't escaping Red Ridge. He was Red Ridge. Marcus stared at his hands, the metallic veins glowing faintly beneath the torn skin. He scraped at them desperately, but the metal ran deep, like roots beneath the flesh. The warden stepped closer, voice calm and cold. You see now, Marcus? Red Ridge doesn't just hold prisoners. It builds them. Marcus shook his head, his breath short. You used us for this? For survival, the warden replied. You think the world outside cares about what happens here? They shut us down, cut our funding, erased us. So we adapted. We became what they feared most. The ground rumbled beneath them. Cracks ran up the walls, and the sound of steel twisting echoed through the vast chamber. The prison was waking up again, hungry, angry, alive. Marcus stumbled backward, clutching the metal pipe. He wasn't sure if he could kill the warden, or even if it mattered anymore. But he knew one thing. If Red Ridge lived, no one outside would be safe. He ran toward the center of the core where the heart of the prison still pulsed under broken glass. Sparks flew as he slammed the pipe deep into the glowing mass. The warden roared, his voice blending with 1,000 others, shaking the walls. Stop! You'll destroy everything. Marcus shouted back. That's the point. The lights flared white-hot, blinding him. The air turned electric, and every sound vanished in a single thunderous burst, then silence. When Marcus opened his eyes, he was lying in the yard. The sun was bright, warm, and real. For a moment, he thought he'd made it. But when he looked down, his reflection in a puddle stared back with glowing silver eyes. He stood slowly, feeling the hum of energy under his skin. The walls of Red Ridge around him were silent now, cracked and still, but somehow, he could still hear them breathing. He looked toward the main gate. It was open. No guards. No alarms. No life. He stepped through it, out into the empty road beyond the fence. The wind was cold against his face. For the first time in years, he was free. But deep in the distance, the faint echo of chains rattled beneath the earth. And somewhere far below, Red Ridge whispered again, "Freedom is just another cell." Marcus turned, staring back at the ruined prison. He didn't know if he was still inside, or if Red Ridge was now inside him. The camera pulls back slowly, revealing the massive outline of the prison face carved into the ground, its eyes faintly glowing once more. Then, darkness. What really happened to Marcus Red, no one ever knew. The prison was sealed, its history erased, and every record of Red Ridge quietly disappeared from government files. But some nights, Truckers driving past the old highway swear they can still see faint red lights glowing in the dirt, like the place is still breathing. If you made it this far, you're a true fan of dark mysteries and hidden truths. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into the world's most chilling prisons and untold stories. This was Inside America's Toughest Prisons, the dark truth behind the walls. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.